familiar faces here, as well as meeting a lot of new people that we haven't been around before, but hope to grow relationships with. As many of you know, the Office of Broadband Development has a strong belief in collaborations and relationships, and that's why we make all of this work. It takes all the voices and perspectives of those in the room to speak for those in your community and beyond. So, over the last 10 years, we have achieved so much, and many of you have been here for all 10 years. Not myself, but I feel like it most days. Yeah. Maybe? Okay, so the development of the ultra-high-speed broadband task force in August of 2008 really launched that, as well as our mapping programs. And then also developing our statutory goals, and then the creation of the Office of Broadband Development in 2010. Today our hope is to be present, to be reflective, and to be motivated for the future. Let's celebrate our accomplishments, but stay on task for all of the work that we still need to do. It's a pivotal time with all the federal investments, as well as state investments, and our digital opportunity work that we are doing here in the state. So, to start this out, I'm really excited to say that with the support and on behalf of Governor Walz and Lieutenant Governor Flanagan, as well as Dean Commissioner Matt Verlack, welcome to Grant Round 10 in 10. It is open today. So, yay to all of you who will be working on this grant round, as well as the team who worked to flip from last week of $53 million in grant awards to this week to launching our next $50 million grant awards. So, this will be similar to last round, so $20 million will go into our low population density program, $30 million into our border-to-border grant program. And if anything from the last round of applicants is true, this is going to be a very competitive round again, and are going to have really quality applications. So thank you to all that worked so hard last round. Hopefully you're set up for this next round, and we're not putting too much work on you. So let's get the day started. My team is here. We have doubled in size from last year. Please say hi, get to know them. They're working incredibly hard for all of you every day. Visit with each other during breaks. Meet new people. That's what it's all about here in Minnesota, meeting new people. And if you have nothing to say, talk about the weather. It's beautiful. You're welcome for those who travel. Share on social media and take lots of photos. And thank you for those who traveled far on planes to be here and support our work, as well as those who are neighbors to where we are right now. Thank you to those online who are making it a priority to be here as well, even if travel was not allowed for you today or could permit you to be here today. I do want to make one note on the agenda. The second panel, or the Office of Broadband Development Reflections, will run just until 10, and then we'll go from 10 to 10:30 with the American Connection Corps lightning round. So just a small change there. We'll stay on task as best we can, but just wanted you to be aware of that. So with that, one of our great partners through all of this work has been the Blended Foundation. And many of you have been involved in the work that they do, building up communities and capacities. So with that, I would like to turn it over to a brief welcome video from Blended, and then we'll proceed with the agenda.
Greetings. It's a great day and the right time to lift up the vision and action of community leaders like each of you, focused on bringing your communities reliable broadband that moves rural places forward. I'm Jackie David, Senior Program Director at Blended Foundation. Years of working with rural communities to build broadband-powered, future-forward communities has made one thing clear: it all comes down to local leadership. Strong, dynamic networks of leaders forged across geographies and sectors have come together over decades with the aspiration of bringing border-to-border broadband to Minnesota. Behind every network built, every connection made, are hundreds of Minnesota leaders who have put countless hours door knocking, holding meetings and trainings, and deal-making to bring us to today. We're honored to have played a supporting role in Minnesota's broadband story. Our involvement in over 850 broadband projects across 61 counties and 5 tribal communities has been a journey of great pride and collaboration. It's gratifying to see these communities, who are the true champions of this work, continue to shine. Charles Blandon, our founder, would clearly recognize the vision and dedication that drives each of you. His life, career, and philanthropic investment embodied a commitment to resilience, resourcefulness, and long-term sustainability. And his success as a leader was intrinsically tied to his ability to look ahead to the horizon. Like Mr. Blandon, each of you has looked ahead to that horizon, sized up the challenges and the opportunities Minnesota is adapting to, and used community-based knowledge to build community-centered approaches to make world-class broadband networks available in every rural place and native nation in the state. You listened, learned, and responded to your community's needs. That cycle builds understandings and relationships that move us from information to action, from neighbors to co-creators of community. Together, we move from change to transformation. And transformation is driven by the decision to act on a vision of the future that calls us to hone wise, creative, and confident solutions, to advocate for and with people who are not always heard, and build towards communities where respect, harmony, and integrity flourish. We are deeply gratified to see the incredible work of your communities. Your dedication, innovation, and resilience have helped Minnesota make enormous gains in this essential infrastructure. Enjoy the conference. Savor this moment to celebrate. And as you arrive home, train your eyes to the horizon. Begin to build the next vision with the resources and collective energy available today.
Broadband Access Initiative, which works to accelerate efforts to connect millions of Americans to affordable, reliable, high-speed internet. In addition to working with policymakers, researchers, and other stakeholders to improve policy outcomes, DeWitt works also to include addressing research gaps and bringing together stakeholders for data-driven decisions about how to ensure every American benefits from universal connectivity. Before joining Pew, DeWitt was associated with Booz Allen Hamilton, where she focused on broadband deployment, organized management, and public affairs. She was also a senior fellow with the Heinz Endowments, leading projects for youth philanthropy and community engagement. She holds a bachelor's degree in communications and psychology with Penn State University and has a master's in public administration through the University of Pittsburgh. I am fortunate to call her a mentor, sometimes a therapist, and a very dear friend. So, Catherine, thank you.
Well, good morning, folks. Thank you also for the very warm Minnesota welcome, and I won't make you do a call and repeat unlike Bree, although I might, depending on how energy levels are throughout the day. Good morning, and I just have to say what an honor it is to be with all of you today. And before I jump into the why, I do want to give a big thank you to Bree and her team, the Office of Broadband Development, not only for organizing this fantastic event, but also for their continued work on the digital divide. I'd also be remiss if I didn't thank Commissioner Barrett as well for his leadership. And all of you in the room, which we'll get to a little bit more in a moment, and the role that all of you have played in the progress that has been made. So, Bree just read my bio. Sorry that it was so long, I really should trim that down. But some of you may still be wondering why exactly I am here today. which is fair. So if you're not familiar with Pew, or if you're like my parents when I took the job at Pew that only knows Pew through NPR, which is great. Pew's a nonprofit, nonpartisan research organization. We work with policymakers at every level of government, inside and outside of elected office, to help solve complex challenges facing policy professionals. That ranges from the very sexy world of state fiscal health to protecting waterlands and working on broadband. And I've worked on broadband and specifically state broadband for over a decade. I got my career started, as many in our field did, working on the Recovery Act programs that were administered by the Department of Commerce. That's where I learned about some of the early work happening in Minnesota. I joined Pew about 6 years ago, and I lead what's called the Broadband Access Initiative. We were charged with a single task: figure out what states were doing now that federal funds had gone away. And if states were doing anything on broadband, was it working? And I'm sure this will come as no surprise that many people directed us to Minnesota. Didn't come as a surprise to me. But we learned quite a bit about Minnesota in a unique way that y'all have approached the digital divide over the course of our research. And it is coined, as some of you have as well, what's called the Minnesota model. And what do we mean by the Minnesota model? Now, I'm going to be honest with you, because I was rereading transcripts to prepare for research transcripts to prepare for this speech. If you actually ask different people in the state, they're going to tell you different things. But really, I can summarize it this way. It's forward-looking, but it's pragmatic. And there were really 4 key characteristics that emerged about the Minnesota model. The first is strong leadership from your executive and legislative branches in the state government, as well as alignment between those parties. The second was a focus on data and mapping. The third was continuous and ongoing policy improvement. And the fourth, relationships. But what does that mean in practice? First is the alignment between elected officials and civil servants. And y'all may hear this a lot, or maybe you don't, I don't know. Minnesota is unique, and it's unique in the fact that you have had folks working towards the same objective on the digital divide for well over a decade. And it's not about the technology, it is about making sure that lack of access to broadband does not become a barrier to economic vitality in your communities. That is the point that your elected officials, your civil servants, and all of you in the room keep coming back to. How do we make sure that lack of bandwidth is not a barrier to opportunity? Also importantly, which we don't talk about enough, your elected officials made sure that your office was not only established, it had authority to do the jobs that it needed to do, and it was funded. Never forget that if you really want to know what lawmakers care about, the second point's on data and mapping. And really, I don't know if you guys know this, but the FCC's map is not the best. It's a laugh at these audiences. But importantly, the data and mapping authority that the office has allows them to equip themselves to understand the need that their communities have at a local level. It allows them to communicate to policymakers where they're making progress and what additional needs and resources they have. Additionally, it's a really important tool for public engagement. Finally, it also established a challenge process that, importantly, not only allows for two-way communication about what the data is capturing, but it also provides disincentives for bad actors, something which is still notably absent from our federal data and mapping efforts. The third element of the Minnesota model is continuous policy improvement. Unlike most states after the Recovery Act, y'all kept your office going. You kept the efforts going, you kept the efforts funded. And importantly, you kept updating your goals. And now I will say this, that every time I talk about the Minnesota broadband goals, I have to double check the year because 2016 seems like a really long time ago. Particularly when your goal was set at 100 down, 20 up by 2026. You are higher than the federal government. Your standards are higher than the federal government, and they have been since 2016. That's remarkable. And that's also driven your investment and your focus on scalable technology to ensure that the public dollar is being spent on money or on infrastructure that will be useful not 2 years in the future, 5 years in the future, but 10 to 20. Now, I will say, as we come to the fourth and probably the most important component of the Minnesota model, and the hardest one to replicate, the office and the legislature really shouldn't do this work, and the government really shouldn't do this work in isolation. Some of them do, not here, but they shouldn't. And that's why the fourth component of the Minnesota model, relationships, is arguably the most important and I think the most defining part of the Minnesota model. And that's emblematic by all of you who are here today. So thank you for the work that you have done 10 years and before that to continue ensuring that every Minnesotan has access to an affordable, high-speed, reliable internet connection. Before I move on, I do want to point a little bit to those relationships. Two notably, one is the task force, who Margaret Anderson Kelleher referred to as outside agitators. The other is the Rural Broadband Coalition, and making sure that those who live in rural communities are represented by organizations and entities who actually understand what their needs are. That representation is critical, and it's now being replicated across states across the country. Third are public-private partnerships, and I'm using that term really broadly here, because when we talk about P3s, which everyone's saying, oh, P3s are so important, they're really hard to do. They're really hard to do well. It also doesn't incorporate the nonprofits, the community-serving organizations, the associations, as well as the internet service providers. All of these entities, along with local government, are critical to ensuring that you continue making that progress, that you can continue refining the program over time, and these relationships and these collaborations are really the reason why Minnesota is the North Star of broadband. No? Okay, but the result of all of this is 10 years of a broadband office and 10 years of a grant program that has connected more than 170,000 homes. $300 million in projects. And more importantly, you've had an influence on the rest of the country in how we focus on state broadband initiatives and now federal broadband initiatives. You elevated the work that all of you have done, elevated the conversation, and gave us a proof point, evidence to take to Congress, to take to other governors across the country to say, yes, you can solve this problem. Yes, states should have goals. Yes, we need to focus on P3s, and yes, you can use public dollars to invest in scalable technology. So when I work with folks who are state broadband skeptics, and that is all over the country, some of them were but you really do see the influence of Minnesota on our Recovery Act program, ARPA, Recovery Plan, Recovery Act is a long time ago, Recovery Plan programs, capital projects, indeed. You see that in words like scalable, reliable. You see that in construction windows that are significantly shorter than any other federal program before. You see that in a multi-layered challenge process. In states like Tennessee and Missouri that have emulated your grant programs for almost 8 years. In California, Texas, Pennsylvania, Missouri, and elsewhere, where Pew, my team, and others have invested in coalitions to help make sure that you have community and company representation at the policy-making table. Organizations like Benton, Heartland Forward, Land O'Lakes, they're investing in the community expertise, building the knowledge of local leaders, whether they're elected officials in local government, whether they're civil servants, whether they're community partners, they are building their knowledge to help ensure that they are ready for this transformational funding opportunity that is coming their way. But the work isn't done. Some 400,000, I'm looking at Bruceine here, some 400,000 households lack access to 100 down and 20 up. Connectivity, the availability of a connection is still a significant barrier to access, but affordability still remains the primary barrier. And in order to achieve the office's goal, the legislature's goal, the governor's goal of economic opportunity for all, we can't just build it, we have to make sure that folks can afford it. We also have to make sure that they have the skills to be able to use it. So, as we look ahead, what does the Minnesota model mean moving forward? It means more than $650 million in BEAD funding. That has different standards than the current border-to-border program. And I want to be very clear about this. This is billed as a state-led program, but the federal government is exerting a lot of influence on how this funding will be spent. That is why collaboration and input and partnership is more important than ever, to talk about what Minnesotans need and to advocate for those needs, not just here, but in Washington, D.C. I'd like to conclude by, again, thanking all of you for your time today, for allowing me to celebrate in this incredible accomplishment, and also for your leadership. Whether you know it or not, you have had an indelible impact on state and national policy, as well as on the lives of millions of Americans across the country. So thank you. And I described the Minnesota model earlier as forward-looking but pragmatic, but I would also remind you that you can't lead from behind. So as we look ahead, as we work together and looking ahead, as everyone here is working together for the next phase of work, with border to border and beyond, I'd say let's not just look at these, but let's look at how we really use these investments to build an inclusive opportunity, or an inclusive economy for all. Thank you so much, and I look forward to being with you today. So with that, I am going to turn the microphone over to Kevin McKinnon, who's the Deputy Commissioner for the Deed Office.
Well, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
It's a great day in Minnesota, isn't it? It's a little warm for March, but I think we'll all take it. As Catherine mentioned, my name is Kevin McKinnon. I'm the Deputy Commissioner for Economic Development at DEED. We run a variety of programs, whether that be directly for business, but also for community development. And our operation at DEED has significantly expanded over the last couple of years. Over 10 years ago, we started this office, and intentionally it was put at DEED. So I am actually delighted to be here today to bring the perspectives of my past employees in the office, and also the current employees of our office who run the Office of Broadband, and to celebrate many of you who have made this possible here today. So fortunately, or unfortunately for some, I have been here since the start of Broadband. So prior to establishing the office, hearing from all sides, particularly in my community, the economic development community, this was an important issue prior to even establishing the office, as you all know. It was that discussion and that significant interest that did lead to ultimately a legislative process and a funded effort. And it's due to the passionate legislators, the passionate community members, and other stakeholders that were involved in the process. The thought process for obviously establishing the office at DEED was very, very clear, and you just heard part of it from Catherine. This is about partnerships. This is about community development and offering an inclusive opportunity for everyone to participate in today's economy. And at DEED, that is our mission, that is our role, and that's how we approach our work in the Economic Development Division at DEED. There is a clear need for partnership, respecting incumbents, attracting new people into the program, but maintaining a professional and fair process, and again, respecting incumbents and managing the process. All of this did make the Minnesota model that Catherine has mentioned, and you'll hear a lot about today. It's that dialogue that came together to actually form this program and to form a successful program for all in Minnesota. So today we're seeing the technology impacts, the adoption rates, digital literacy concerns that many had identified over a decade ago. And we continue to see the important role that broadband is playing in community development all across our state. So it has been a great 10 years, and I look forward to the next 10. Well, let's just say the next 5 at least, right? And get through that first. But hopefully, at some point, as well one of our former directors used to say, we'll work ourselves out of a job. Well, we're not there yet, are we? And I think it's going to be a little bit of time before we are. But nonetheless, I have the pleasure of reading some reflections of each director's time. My former employees have all been a treat. My current one, I'll save that for later, but no. But seriously, all have been special people. All have had a major role in how this program has rolled out. All have played a major role with all of you in establishing and creating this program. So our first director was Dan McKenzie. During the 2013 legislative session, the legislature created the Office of Broadband within DEED, and as a goal, but not later than 2015, all residents and businesses shall have access to high-speed broadband that provides minimum download speeds of 10 to 20 megabits per second and minimum upload speeds of 5 to 10 bits per second. It was at this time that our first executive director was appointed by Governor Mark Dayton. And Dana assumed her position on January 6, 2014, and over the next 4 years under Dana's leadership, OBD launched our border grant program and had several successful grant rounds. So I am very pleased to, unfortunately Dana couldn't be here, but I am very pleased to read some of her reflections of her time with the office. And these are Dana's words. I wish I could be here with you this week to mark 10 years of continued success with the State Broadband Office and the journey to secure high-quality broadband for everyone in Minnesota. You are right to pause and celebrate. You have accomplished so much and served as role models for so many. I consider my time with you as a career highlight. We are blessed in Minnesota to be at the center of the Venn diagram of what it takes to find success in this work. Community leaders that are committed to securing a bright future for their towns and counties, a diverse provider community working together to find ways to get everyone served, and state leaders and policymakers that got it early and still show up with the resources and support needed to get the most difficult parts of the job done. The early work of the Blandon Foundation and others helped build an understanding in rural communities throughout the state about the importance of broadband and that broadband would hold the future of every community. They energized local leaders and gave them a vocabulary and tools to go out and advocate for their own needs. They carried this work forward to St. Paul and helped policymakers hear about rural needs in their own voices. Rural voices were also carried to St. Paul by many other organizations, including the League of Minnesota Cities, the Association of Minnesota Counties, the Minnesota Association of Townships, among many, many others. And while I don't have time to name a fraction of the individuals who have served, the loudest and clearest voices came from community leaders that stepped up first and came to St. Paul to make their case. Rock County's Kyle Baldry, Pine County's Mark Johnson, and LeSueur's Barbara Drower-Klein are just 3 examples of community leaders that it takes to be successful at this work. Rick King, as the first task force chair, you set the tone and tilled the soil for a system of cooperation and consensus building that still serves as a national model. Margaret Anderson Kelleher, your leadership incubated and nurtured a then nascent system for working together into a powerhouse for getting things done around broadband issues that was unparalleled for many years. And Teddy McKelly, while I haven't had the pleasure to meet you, I hear you wear the same size shoes as Margaret and Rick, and that the state is lucky to have you in the seat that you hold. Kevin McKinnon, your open-minded, quiet, and steadfast leadership as this crazy broadband issue landed in your lap many years ago was part of the secret sauce that paved the way for achieving so many good things during the past 10 years. And Diane Wells, your commitment to seeing this challenge through and bringing your experience to bear has carried DEED and the state forward through both low tides and high tides of this work. And the providers. Where would we be without the people who actually build and run this stuff? Our good fortune to have a wide variety and great number of entities fully engaged in delivering world-class broadband to their communities and service areas is the gift that keeps on giving. The support of the Minnesota Telecom, Cable, and Rural Associations and their members have been critical to the successes over 10 years being celebrated today. Not to mention the many other companies and communities that have paved their own way to securing best-in-class internet for their corners of the state. For those of you in this room, and those online, and all who have been part of this success, we all know that your work will pay dividends for decades to come. I'm lucky to consider myself one of you, and I'm delighted that you are celebrating 10 years of continued coordination, problem solving, and success. Congratulations, Dan. Typical Dana, long-winded, however, very thoughtful. She did set the pace. She was always very curious. I remember when the program first started and Dana came into my office and we talked about the grant program, and Dana had no idea where to start. And that was another good thing about this landing at D. We had plenty of experience in starting up grant programs, and we certainly learned a lot in those days. But Dana educated me. She educated a lot of us, and we are grateful for her dedication and time as a leader at D. We were very sad to see Dana move on, but our bench was strong, and she had built the foundation for what was to come next. Angie Dickinson was appointed in July 2019 to serve as the interim executive director when Dana McKenzie left OBD. She was appointed in 2020 as the executive director. Under Angie's leadership, we launched a new program called Telecommuter Forward, the community certification program, and over the next few years certified over 40 telecommuter forward communities. She assisted the governor's office in actually establishing the new the governor's task force on broadband under the Walz-Flanagan administration, and provided support for the first meeting in December of 2019. The office also was very fortunate to receive national recognition during this time, highlighted in Pew Charitable Trust report how states are expanding broadband access, and Minnesota's broadband policy was highlighted in the 2020 National Governors Association report, Governor Strategies to Expand Affordable Broadband Access. Personally, around this time, there's a group of economic development leaders from states that get together all around the country. I have spoken on broadband, and most people that know me know that I'm not a technology guy, but I've spoken on broadband to all of my colleagues around the country on numerous occasions. This has been a hot topic in economic development over the last number of years, and certainly has culminated in what we're seeing, obviously, today. So, Angie Dickinson's reflections. As the OBD celebrates 10 years of broadband in Minnesota, I am deeply grateful for the opportunity to have led the office from 2020 to 2022. Dana left enormous shoes to fill, and there's no doubt that Minnesota's broadband program owes much of its success to her leadership. Taking the helm during a period of transition and uncertainty was no small feat. The pandemic presented unexpected challenges, staffing changes, added complexity. Fortunately, I had the unwavering support of a dynamic team at Deed. Collaborating with Kevin McKinnon and Deed's exceptional leadership team was an honor. Their guidance and expertise were invaluable as we navigated the ever-evolving landscape of broadband development and public policy in Minnesota. And then there's Diane Wells. Minnesota's broadband program wouldn't be what it is today without Diane. Her steadfast commitment to broadband expansion and the integrity of OBD is unparalleled. We are also incredibly fortunate to welcome Carol, Carrie, and Jen to the team during this time. Watching them grow in their roles has been a pleasure. And during my time at Deed, the team remained resolute in our mission to keep Minnesota's broadband program on course. We championed broadband expansion, ensuring that our communities stayed connected even during the most challenging times. Beyond OBD's internal team, there is a tireless group of stakeholders, broadband industry leaders, legislators, and public policy advocates who contribute to OBD's success. It was a privilege to work with Teddy McKelly and the Governor's Broadband Task Force, and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to collaborate with Catherine DeWitt and her fantastic team at Pew Charitable Trust. The Minnesota Broadband model is nationally recognized thanks to their efforts. Leading this nationally recognized program kept me mindful of my duty to uphold the integrity of the office. I was acutely aware that public resources for broadband infrastructure were scarce, and our team worked diligently to ensure that public funding wasn't wasted on duplicative networks when the need for broadband remained so great. Our focus was clear: channel public resources strategically to bring reliable broadband to underserved areas. By prioritizing efficiency and impact, we aim to bridge the digital divide. Looking to the future, I know Minnesota's broadband program is in great hands with Bree Mackey at the helm. I wish Bree and Team OBD every success as they navigate the complex new world of BEAD and work toward achieving Minnesota's broadband goals. Best wishes, Angie. I'm assuming Angie takes it. Yes, she was. Integrity and efficiency definitely were her goals in continuing the effort. She was a fierce advocate of this and always inquisitive. She also was one of our first directors at DEED that felt she needed to live the model. Many of you know we moved to offices, and as a result, we got to choose how many offices we need and cubes, etc. And Angie didn't want anyone in the office. She wanted to all be remote, and she was right, because we were able to attract some great talent from across the state that didn't have to move to St. Paul to actually do this work. So today, we exist, I think, Bree, and there's one office and 2 cubes in our area at D for Bree, but nonetheless, the model has changed, and the Office of Broadband was the early adopter, certainly, of this. We thank Angie for her leadership. On to Bree. And you'll notice that the previous 2 mentioned me in their talking points, so I was looking for this. Bree Mackey. If I can find your reflections. In October 22nd, Bree was appointed by Governor Walz to serve as the 3rd executive director at OBD. As she took her role, she was rapidly met with new federal programs made available from the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act and the Digital Equity Act. Both of these programs require close collaboration with partners all across the state and require OBD to draft a plan how Minnesota is able to get internet for all, and also to develop a Minnesota Digital Opportunity Plan. The team at OBD continues to grow to meet the state and federal investments with 13 employees, which is over doubled from when she started. With her experience at local, state, and federal government, she understands the importance of connecting and collaborating to truly achieve Minnesota's goals. Bree's reflections. It's an honor and privilege to be entrusted to lead the Office of Broadband Development, especially during such a pivotal time. This past year and a half have come and gone fast, and I continue to learn and grow in this role every day. If you have been in a meeting with me, you probably have heard me say I'm not all that technology savvy, and I have tons to learn about broadband engineering and design. But what I do bring is a commitment that we cannot do this work in a bubble. You do not need to know everything, but you need to know and have the relationships of those that do. So when you have questions or want to understand the impacts of decisions, you have resources to call. We need to support relationships, collaborations of all of us. That is what makes the Minnesota model so strong and successful. I'm proud of the OBD team: Diane, Carol, Ace, Mike, Jennifer, Carrie, Anna, Megan, Anna, Carlos, and Michelle, and their true commitment to the hard work and making the lives of others better. Thank you to the leaders, past and present, who continue to prioritize broadband access in Minnesota. Bree. Since when It isn't easy. She walked into $650 million of BEAD funding, along with the state program, and a rapid expansion of the office. We are thrilled to have and welcome so many new faces to BEAD, and Bree has been a critical resource for the community and bringing the perspectives to this work that are so important. We are very lucky to have you, Bree. So thank you. Now, I would like to recognize the Governor's Task Force on Broadband members, past and present. In April 2008, the Minnesota legislature passed a law creating the Minnesota Ultra High Speed Broadband Task Force. The task force convened in August 2008 to outline a path to ultra high speed internet access for all residents of the state by 2015. Over a year and a half, a group of 23 diverse members met with experts to learn the issues and listen to the public, research solutions from other states and nations, and debate the best way to meet the state's needs. They held meetings in the metro area and in greater Minnesota. All of these meetings, research, and dialogue culminated in a report released in October of 2009. In their report, they set ambitious goals for the state, including Minnesota should have ubiquitous, high-speed broadband coverage as soon as possible, but no later than 2015. At minimum, we recommend speeds of 10 to 20 megabits per second down and 5 to 10 up for all residents by 2015. And additionally, we recommend that Minnesota should aspire to be in the top 5 states for overall speed, in the top 5 states for broadband penetration, and in the top 15 compared to countries for global broadband penetration. Pretty forward thinking back then, and really paved the way for what was coming. So the Minnesota Broadband Advisory Task Force and the Governor's Task Force on Broadband were led by Margaret Anderson Kelleher from 2011 to 2018, and then Teddy McKelly from 2019 to present. The function of the task force was to research, recommend, and promote state broadband policy, planning, and initiatives that address state broadband needs and goals. The task force produces annual reports every year by December 31st, which includes an inventory and assessment of the needs, barriers, issues, and goals for broadband access. The task force consists of 15 members who are appointed by the governor and have experience or interest in broadband matters. The members must represent a balance of broadband interests, including residential and business consumers, local governments, libraries, K-12, higher education institutions, tribal interests, healthcare, broadband providers, economic development, agriculture, rural development, workforce development, and labor interests. This is what makes the Minnesota model. All of those voices that we value so importantly to create the dialogue, to give us the input, and we appreciate the cross-section of voices that obviously come to bear through efforts like this. At this time, I would like to ask members past and present to stand and be recognized for your contributions. Any members here past and present? Really appreciate your time and dedication to this office and to this issue. Now, to the Office of Broadband members past and present. Our program and the work of the task force could not have been achieved without professional staff to lead this work. And during the past 10 years, the office has employed a small, or it was small, now it's growing, but mighty staff to carry out the state's statutory goals and objectives. The staff is now geographically dispersed across Minnesota and are able to live and work in the communities because of broadband access. They are committed to working hard at achieving access and reliable broadband for every home and business. At this time, I'd ask that past and present OBD staff stand to be recognized. because a lot of people that obviously work in state government are always behind the scenes and don't get that recognition. And I'm really pretty pleased that they're able to be here, to be recognized in front of the people that they're trying to serve. It's incredibly important for them and for us. So thank you to the staff. Now finally, in celebration of the 10th anniversary of the Office of Broadband, we thought it would only be fitting to celebrate our first Broadband Champion Award winner. To no surprise, hopefully this is no surprise to any of you in this room, but this person has actually been with the Office of Broadband since it was created. Diane Wells started with the Public Utilities Commission for the state of Minnesota in April of 1986. At that time, landlines were heavily regulated, and she analyzed and reviewed telephone company filings to change rates and terms of the service they provided their customers. During her time, she managed the telecommunications division at the Minnesota Department of Commerce for 8 years and served on the telecommunications staff of the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission for 17. She also served as an advisor to the 5 PUC commissioners. During the 2013 session, the legislature, when it created the Office of Broadband with Indeed, Diane was fortunate to move over to Deed, and we were fortunate together. Over the next 10 years, Diane has been a mentor to 3 executive directors and a deputy commissioner, countless employees, advisor to over 80 members of the Governor's Task Force on Broadband, and a trusted partner to internet service providers, industry associations, and all levels of government. She supported and supervised 9 broadband infrastructure grant rounds, distributing over $350 million. We are thankful for the support of Diane's family, who have joined us here today, her husband Pat, and children Melissa and Connor, for actually loaning Diane to us for many sleepless nights and endless weekends, and as she has immersed herself in this work. Now fortunately, our previous directors and our current director have also provided some statements for me to read here. There isn't a person, this is from Dan McKenzie, there isn't a person among us more deserving of this recognition than Diane. She has served as the steadfast connection between many eras of the state efforts to achieve high-quality telecom and broadband services for all Minnesotans. She has patiently educated new generations of champions about the road that has already been traveled, held an even keel for the current work, and continues to contribute her experience and perspective as the state looks forward and strives to achieve the next milestones in getting everyone connected. From Angie Dickinson, working with Diane at OBD was an extraordinary journey. I want to express my gratitude for Diane's exceptional leadership and vision, which are the very foundation upon which OBD stands today. Diane's work ethic, integrity, and dedication to connecting rural communities resonate deeply with all who are fortunate enough to be on her team. What truly sets Diane apart is her creative approach to problem solving. She has an innate ability to navigate complex political and regulatory landscapes with finesse and grace, making the impossible seem attainable. Diane's commitment to bridging the digital divide is not just admirable, it's inspirational. Diane is a broadband champion who continues to redefine what's possible in the state's pursuit of broadband access for all. And a statement from Bree. Diane has been a trailblazer in the telecommunications profession and has fostered generations of women to advance in this career field. I could not ask for a better mentor, more focused on achieving equity and access while ensuring that her team has the tools, knowledge, and resources to thrive. It is truly an understatement that without Diane's fierce leadership and dedication, the incredible work that we have all been able to achieve would not be possible. I could have actually included Diane in my earlier comments about past directors, because Diane served as the interim director between Dana and or between Angie and Bree, but she really is a true professional, a valued and trusted partner, and a big reason why we are celebrating 10 years here today. So Diane, congratulations on receiving the first Broadband Champion.
grad school, I went down to Texas. I had just met Pat right before I left, and we got engaged before, in October of my second year down there. And my dad, and this will tell you the generation that I come from, he said to my mom, well, she's not going to go back to grad school, is she? She's just getting married. So, thank goodness I did, because it was, working for the state all these years was a great way to raise a family. And my two great kids are here, although I feel bad being an inconvenience for you all to have to take off from work and come down here. And as you know, I do my best work in the office, just thinking things through and analyzing and trying to come up with a solution that will make Minnesota a better place. And so, yes, I'm glad I went back to school and got the degree and got hired first by the Public Utilities Commission, and then Ed Garvey brought me over to the Department of Commerce and worked there, and then was very fortunate to work on broadband because it's way more exciting than regulating landline telephone companies, if that's even still a thing. So thank you for this, but really I was just doing that work all those years to try to make Minnesota a better place and had a lot of help along the way, so thank you.
So true, Diane, you have made Minnesota a better place, and you've made Deed a better place, and for that we're truly grateful. Well, thank you to all of those who came before us and made the past 10 years so successful. There are very exciting times ahead, and clearly it takes all of us, and we look forward to continuing that partnership. So on behalf of DEED, the Economic Development Division, we thank you for being here today, and hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Thank you.
Thank you, and just another round of applause for the Deputy Commissioner, because that was I count myself among the women that Bree and others listed that you've mentored over the years, so thank you. Up next on stage, we are welcoming Jackie Nagel, and who's chair of the Technology Initiative and an ACC alumna who will be leading a discussion on the American Connection Board. So please join us on stage. And Becky's taking pictures as always. and Becky did mention that we need to lift this room up a little bit. We're getting kind of quiet in here, so we're going to try to do that in our 5 minutes each, which mine is not 5, mine's shorter. But anyway, good morning. And I'm Jackie Engel. I'm an American Connection Corps alumna and the current chair of the Coaching Technology Initiative. And I'm honored to introduce to you the presenters for the American Connection Corps' lightning round. But first, a brief explanation of what the American Connection Corps is. Taken straight from the ACC website, we have the nation's premier AmeriCorps service experience, advancing economic prosperity in rural and emerging communities. We lead shoulder to shoulder with our neighbors to realize the worth of every place, person, and possibility. While I wholeheartedly agree with that statement, I'd like to offer my own explanation of what the ACC was to me. The
The ACC is a boots-on-the-ground approach to addressing the digital divide throughout the country. ACC members are hosted by nonprofits and local governments for a year of service to the local community to build capacity, attract resources, and activate community engagement. While some members have worked on broadband infrastructure, others have focused on assisting local citizens with ACP enrollment, device procurement, and digital skills training. As an added bonus, the ACC cultivates their members as leaders. And now, I'd like to introduce a few of my favorite ACC folks as they share with you a snippet from their experience with ACC. Tim Gerlach is a current ACC member serving in Cushing County. Tim picked up where I left off at the end of my ACC service, and Tim excels in assisting community members with compassion and care. Sheila Simpson is an ACC alumna, having served in Martin County as a member of the 22-23 cohort. Her work in digital skills, programming, and robotics, while hosted by Project 1590, was focused on closing the digitalized skills gap in her community. Steve Krause is also an ACC alumna and a member of the state cohort as Celia and myself. During our onboarding in DC, Steve and I were quickly identified as non-traditional as the only post-retirement fellows. Steve served in Waseca County with a focus on ensuring broadband access for everyone. And last but not least, Rebecca Johnson. She's the lead program officer for the ACC. She is a member's go-to person, assisting them in achieving success throughout their fellowship. She's a guiding force of both the ACC members and the other ACC program officers, leading them with kind heart and an irresistible style. And I give to you Tim Gerlach.
Thank you, Jackie. Isn't she great? Jackie's my mentor. See if I can work with technology. Kuchichin. You got it right. At least that's how we non-native peoples. Raise your hand if you can identify where Kuchichin County is. Anybody? Yeah, maybe it's slower. It's one of those big ones up north, right? But did you know that Kuchichin County is actually larger than the 7-county metro area? Y'all just have 3 million more people or so. So when my wife and I sort of semi-retired a few years ago back to my hometown of International Falls near Rainy Lake, Voyageurs National Park, I dreamed for years about retiring back there. I wasn't fully prepared for the changes that had occurred in the previous 3 decades. Let's see, by 2010, the population had dropped below the 1920 census. We're somewhere below 12,000 people now. About 1 in 5 children now live in poverty. And the median household income is something less than $55,000 a year, placing us 5th lowest of Minnesota's 87 counties. But not to keep it down, that's where I would like Cushing County's next phase to begin. I believe that the future of Cushing County means having a foot in both the digital and natural worlds. It's always been a remote and isolated place. Today, 3.9 people per square mile, something like that. There's a bunch of us that like solitude once in a while, and that's a plus. And dare I say in front of this group, sometimes it's good to unplug. Is that okay? Yet, all of you in this room understand how good connectivity allows people to live and work and play and start businesses and operate businesses from just about anywhere, right? Even our beautiful Cushing County. And my boss, my program officer, Becky, asked us, what has your American Connection Corps service so far, the last 6 or 7 months, meant to me. And I think it's best summed up by an interaction I had early last fall with someone. And if you'll indulge me, I'd like to read a quick journal entry. He talked, so I listened. He's grateful. Happy to have a roof over his head. Well, it's not his roof, it's his mother's, but she lives out of state. He's young. It was an accident. He fell. He shattered both ankles. He's on crutches and in pain. He's got big medical bills, and he lost his job. He strikes me as a decent guy. He's just been dealt a real mess. And his income has dropped to zero. The phone was shut off, a 20-year-old pickup sits in the driveway. He's embarrassed for not working. He's always had a job. Now he gets by on a small amount of public assistance, and it's all really new to him. He connected with a local construction firm right before his phone was shut off, and he tells me if he heals, he thinks he can get back to work by spring. He's about to lose his family, or at least he thinks a divorce is coming. His wife and his 2 kids are now living elsewhere. We got him signed up for HCP and free internet service. Then we surprised him with a refurbished computer through our Kuching County Kuching Technology Initiative. He tells me he is tremendously grateful. It will allow him to see his children. As they left, we both were pretty much in tears. And I always try to remember that life can take a quick turn for any of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. That was really great. I didn't know you were a poet, so I really appreciate that. Hi everyone, my name is Celia Simpson, and as Jackie said, I served in Martin County, Minnesota with Project 1590. I am one of the lucky ones. I grew up in the early 2000s, and from the moment I started school, I had a keyboard in one hand and a mouse in the other. I know how technology works, and it made me successful not only in school, but in my careers and my personal life, especially as we face the COVID-19 pandemic. I went to school out in Seattle, Washington, far, far away from my hometown of Fairmont, Minnesota. Connected with friends and family, and was able to stay safe. And so, when I graduated from college in 2022, I wanted to find a way to give back and use some of those skills to benefit my home community. There, I found the American Connection Corps through Broadband, and found that I could serve my community, my rural community, who lacked access to infrastructure and affordable devices with our socioeconomic status, and then the digital skills piece. Initially, I thought I'd be focused on these grants, these amazing, wonderful federal dollars. I was excited to see them coming into our communities. But my term took a sidestep in some ways. With my experience in technology, I really focused on the digital skills piece, working with youth and seniors to recognize that they needed these skills to be successful, not only in their future careers, but in their day-to-day lives. With youth, I worked on robotics programs, working with elementary kids through seniors, so that they could learn the skills for tomorrow's workforce. You can see, oh, I just flipped slides, sorry. There we go. So on the top right is my high school robotics team. I won state last year. Those kids got the chance to do CAD, 3D printing, and software programming, building an amazing bot that was able to compete at Worlds as well, down in Texas. Additionally, as I am female, when I was going through school, I didn't have the opportunity to do many of the science or technology skills that I was interested in. So I focused on workshops and STEM camps, working with girls to teach them some of the software and programming skills that they would need to get into those computer science fields for the workforce tomorrow. But as much as the joy and fun I had with all of the youth from my community was, I really enjoyed working with the seniors in my home community. I had group presentations, support groups, and one-on-ones, where I learned just how difficult it can be to not only access technology, but understand how to use it better for your daily life. I taught individuals how to print, how to use email, how to access their health portal, a critical piece of their daily lives, grocery stores, and just Google search. I learned through working with them how difficult it can be when you don't have family or friends nearby, or patient family or friends nearby to work with you and answer your questions, especially when sometimes you have memory issues and can't retain information. So, as I now step into my job with SIDA, working in economic development fields, I have the skills and knowledge and experience to understand why we need to use newspaper and Facebook and word of mouth to connect with people, why broadband is important, why digital skills are important, so that we can have everybody on the same page, ready to move forward together. And I will forever be grateful for the American Connection Corps for giving me that experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you, Tim and Celia. You can see what a great honor and what a great privilege it has been to be part of the American Connection Corps. I'm Steve Krause, and I'd like to just tell you a short story. 3 years ago, I retired from 40 years of service with the United Nations system and the U.S. Department of State. It was a wonderful career. I really enjoyed my 40 years of international health, focusing on prevention, treatment, care, and support for people affected by leprosy, tuberculosis, malaria, HIV, and AIDS. I was blessed to have traveled the world, and I had country assignments in Africa, the Middle East, in Asia, and the Pacific. My academic degrees from the University of St. Mary's in Winona, Minnesota, and then graduate medical school at the University of Minnesota, and then postgraduate medical work at the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine at the University of London. Those academic preparations were really important for my 40 years of professional international service. Although the world feels more like my backyard, there was never any doubt that I would someday return home to the place where I grew up, where I went to church, where I did my primary and secondary school education, and where my brothers and sisters today continue the family farm, now a 6th generation family farm in Waseca County. It feels really good to be back home. However, as you might know, I wasn't ready to stop working. I still had too much gunk in my tummy. I wanted to do more. And I knew that golf is not my game. The only way I ever win is if I cheat, and I cheat a lot. And I knew that if I hung out at nice warm sunny beaches with my blonde hair and blue eyes, that's almost an instant recipe for sunburn. So I wanted to give back to my community. I wanted to be with the people and the village that helped raise this child. And so it was. My daughter Benya, I don't know where she is right now, my daughter Benya, she introduced me to American Connection Corps, a flagship service program of AmeriCorps. Following a national search and recruitment process, the American Connection Corps and League for America assigned me to Waseca County, where I was supervised by a remarkable county commissioner, Lee Molitor, and a wonderful county administrator, Michael Johnson, both who are here somewhere here today, back there. Great, good to see both of you, and thanks for coming today. I'm incredibly grateful for Michael and Dee's friendship and their collegiality and their trust. Now I mention all of this because despite a wonderful international career and a lot of good academic training, the reality is advanced university degrees in public health and tropical medicine do not necessarily translate into deeper understanding of broadband, fiber optic networks, and enhanced ACOM. So I want to give a special shout out and an appreciation of what AmeriCorps does by just talking about how AmeriCorps provides the opportunity for ongoing education, to retool yourself, to learn new skills as you grow older and wiser. I'm grateful that, for example, we had quarterly training programs in Washington, D.C. for our orientation. Lando Lakes hosted us at Minneapolis for the national cohort. We attended the NDIA National Conference in San Antonio, Texas, and we also then had our graduation in Washington, D.C. But in addition, we have the support of our program officer. We have the weekly pods with other ACC fellows, and we have a chance to share and learn from our on-site supervisors and discussions. All of that gives a tremendous opportunity for continued growth, for the opportunity to stay young and to be an active ACC senior fellow. I kind of want to give a special shout out to both Ann Tracy, Blandon on Broadband Productions. She is a wonderful resource to Minnesota and to our country. By reading her publications and following her, there's continuous learning. I also want to just give a great shout out to our good friend Barbara. We're fortunate that Washington County and LeSueur share common borders, and we share common stories and a common passion to advance our communities. And a special shout out also to Bill Coleman, because he made sure by participating in those ACC trainings, we could ask anything we wanted, and Bill would give us a bit of good guidance. Early on, when I began my assignment in August of 2022, Michael and Dee, they said, Steve, do one big thing, please. As a county commissioner and as a county administrator, we simply don't have the time to meet with all the internet service providers that are providing services in Waseca County. Go out and meet with every one of them. And so over the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I met with over 25 internet service providers. I talked to them by phone, by Skype, by Zoom, and by Team. I got in my car and I drove to their offices, and I wanted to understand what do they do and how do they do it? What are their priorities? And as Bree has commented in some of her public comments, in Minnesota we enjoy a great partnership between private sector and the internet service providers. I'm grateful that those 27 internet service providers that I met with, all of them were willing to share information, some more than others. But some of them really then said, listen, Steve, I get it. I get where you're coming from. Waseca is a rural community, and it's rich in agriculture, and it just isn't financially attractive for most partners to invest in a place like Waseca. So we look for partners that have that integrity, that commitment to serve people in rural communities that were financially productive and adding to the value of the economic growth of Minnesota. And we were grateful and happy to meet, look, and search. And eventually we found. We worked with BevCon, and I remember when I made a cold call to Bill Eccles. Bill is also here today. Bill, thank you. Bill said, Steve, why don't you come on over for coffee? And I did. I brought a bouquet of flowers for his secretary because she negotiated that opportunity to talk with Bill. And Bill and I sat in his business room, in his war room, and we looked at the slides, and we looked at the FCC maps, and we looked at the maps of the Minnesota office, and we looked at what we could do in Waseca County. And together, we did business with Bill. My last slide. As many of you know already, earlier this month, just last week, the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, through their Office of Broadband Development, announced the Round 9 awards. BevCom was awarded nearly $4.4 million Washington County contributed $675,000, and Bill and his RevCon colleagues provided the additional funding to expand broadband to 7 different county townships. I mention this because it was a celebration of trust. It was a celebration of getting together, talking, listening. The training of ACC and the partnership that we had with the county commissioners allowed us to share information with all 5 county commissioners, not equally committed or equally fluent in broadband, but 100% committed to making a difference for the people that they represent. And so with that, I want to just say to Bree, and to your colleagues at the Office of Broadband, thank you for your good governance. A good state government is somebody that you can call on the phone, send an email, and get an answer. And that's what we really appreciate. We are incredibly grateful to ACC, and I love my colleagues and I love the opportunities. And I hope that whether you have a son or a daughter, a godfather or a godmother, or somebody that you think would be interested to do service to the community, that you consider work with ACC as an ACC fellow. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Let me get my slide up here. Thank you to all of our members and alumni who have shared their impact, and thank you for letting us share our impact that we've had in Minnesota for the last few years. My name is Rebecca Johnson, and I've been with League for America for nearly 4 years. I've had the distinct pleasure to guide these people and many, many others through a term of AmeriCorps service. And I would love to just take a few minutes to give you a little higher level view of what ACC is and some of the impact that we've had in Minnesota, and then how you can get involved. So before we get too far into things, I do have to take a second to pause to acknowledge a very special person in the crowd who is talking to someone, Benya Krause. She's one of the co-founders of the program. She's gone on to bigger and beautiful things, but I do want to just take a minute to pause. Maybe give her a round of applause. It's through her efforts that we are able to stand here and bring capacity to you and all of your communities. So thank you, Benya. Okay. So ACC is rapidly growing into the nation's largest AmeriCorps service program, connecting people to place and possibility in rural and legacy communities across America. It was officially launched in 2021 as a pilot program, part of a partnership between League for America and the American Connection Project, which was an effort of Land O'Lakes and their partners. This slide just highlights some of the cumulative impact nationally that we've been able to have since then. I just want to pull out a few numbers. We've placed nearly 180 AmeriCorps members since 2021 across the country in 27 states to do capacity building work in all manner of things, but primarily focusing on the digital divide and narrowing that. Another number that I really want to highlight is that really big one at the top, makes nearly 64 million, a little bigger now, thank you, Steve, in the Office of Broadband. That's money that is going into communities to do economic development, do broadband expansion, and that is all part of work that our members do. And then my favorite number is 91%. 91% of our members are working on projects that would not have been possible, that their host sites would have been trying to get done or trying to prioritize, but just haven't been able to do, and we're able to do with an ACC member. So narrowing that focus a little bit closer to Minnesota, because that's why we're here, that's what y'all care about. We've placed 22 members that have served 40 communities or counties in Minnesota since 2019, and that's through League for America, League for Minnesota, and now American Connection Corps. Those folks have been able to leverage about $12 million for broadband and community development, and that is in partnership with folks like Bree, and all the team, because you guys have just such a strong connection to serving and bringing broadband out and connecting everybody, and that's just really awesome. I'm from Nebraska, so we definitely look to you guys as a model, and hopefully we can be Minnesota someday. Hopefully not. Anyways, I lost my place. Darn. Okay. Yeah, another great number. 90% of our alumni that have served in Minnesota have stayed in Minnesota, and that's huge. That connection to place is really important. A great example is Amber, and she's not here today, but she served with us for 2 terms in Duluth, and she was able to stay with her host site and expand to work on connecting communities. And she is awesome. These are a couple other folks that are, again, not able to be here today and have graduated through the program, and they've both done just really tremendous work and transformative service for their communities. So I wanted to shout out Carter and Patrick Berry as well. These are just some great examples of what an ACC member can do for you. And we do have a very diverse cohort. I don't have a picture of him up here, but we also have another member named Brogan who is working in Fergus Falls with the West Central Initiative on climate action planning. So we do all manner of things. Very diverse group. Okay. So if you are interested in learning more about the program or maybe hosting a member, we're currently working through that right now. The application process is open, and I will have a link. I've got information in the back. I've got a table set up. We do have just a couple of requirements, and these are listed here. Host organizations have to be a nonprofit or government entity or a civic entity. They need to have an office and a supervisor to place that member for a term of service. And there has to be a project that's focused in one of our core areas, which are economic development, broadband falls under that, and health and social capital or agriculture and natural resources. And there is a host site fee. These folks are actually from Nebraska and Kentucky, but this was in Land O'Lakes, so it's Minnesota related. This is kind of an overview of the timeline of our program. We are recruiting now, as I said, for host sites and members, and then our program will actually start and launch in late September and then go through late July. That's when we usually wrap up with graduation. Throughout that term, as these guys did a wonderful job highlighting, there's a lot of opportunities for growth and networking and connections for members and host sites. So, and this is Shabazz. He served in Waseca with the Chamber and Arts Center. Super cool guy. So yeah, if you'd like to learn more, here's a QR code that will take you to our lovely website. It will also give you information on hosting a member if you are interested in that, or come see me. I'm going to go sit at that table right over there with the colorful cups, and I would love to give you guys all the details. And I realize I think I'm the only person standing in between you and a break, so I will let you all go. Thank you for your time, and thank you for letting us share our impact